Chen has broken her silence relating to the Tenet media story from last year, where the DOJ claimed that Tenet media was a front for Russian influence operations and that people such as Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, and Dave Rubin were paid to spread Russian propaganda. It's fake news. It's a lie. It's always been a lie. And now, with a direct statement from Chen, we have more evidence that it's a lie. And there's a lot to talk about in this regard. But the update, Chen's statement, maybe not the biggest news in the world, but something I certainly want to talk about because I've said this already and I've said it several times. And these liberal liars, these evil Democrats, don't care about what's true. And here was the game. I stated this. We were working with the FBI. Okay? We were contacted by the FBI. I had two legal teams, and I said, get them whatever they need. Okay, we want the truth on what really happened here. And then just, for no reason in December, they said, nah, we're not interested. Thank you and have a nice day. And I was informed by my legal team that the case was over, literally within like a month or two of it starting. And I said, you got to be kidding me. This was a scam the whole time. They lied. They made it up because they wanted to smear, anti-establishment voices, people who had been supporting Trump right before the election. So October surprise, Russian influence, and then as soon as the election's over, it's actually not true and we're not interested anymore. It was a scam the whole time. Now, I can't tell you about the inner workings or the deals, on whatever. I can tell you about us. I can tell you about what we did. I'm going to read for you Chen's statement, which I believe corroborates what I had already stated. Chen states they were informed in April of this year that the case was closed. Closed. So let me stress this for all the lying, psychotic, evil authoritarian Democrats who lied every step of the way about this. There has never been any proof. There has never been anything proven. There's only been conjecture. And I can break it down for you how they lie in the indictment, how they use what's called assumptive reasoning to trick people into drawing conclusions, despite the fact nothing is ever proven. And I want to give a shout out to our good friend ChatGPT to explain the fracturing and the bias in the media. Let me just tell you a quick story. Many of you may be aware that ChatGPT has been accused in a lawsuit of encouraging a 16-year-old to commit suicide. The family submitted chat logs, submitted chat logs to the court from what ChatGPT told their child. And some of these statements are shocking. Here's the mainstream media bias, exemplified by the psychotic AI machine. Now, real quick, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. If you like what I do, join us on our Discord at timcast.com. We need your support in the Discord community so that we can fight for truth. Let me tell you a quick story, right? So I go to ChatGPT, and I'm like, let's play a game. This family submitted court documents and chat logs. We've never seen them. We don't know. When I asked ChatGPT, and I know it's an AI, but this is the point about how the machine is built to be biased. And I asked it, did you do this? It says, no, never happened. And I said, the family submitted chat logs to the court, and it has been reported by numerous news outlets that ChatGPT did encourage this teenager, to commit suicide. ChatGPT gave me every weasel answer imaginable that these are unproven allegations, likely to be proven false. Nothing is true until the court determines it. In the same conversation, I said, was Tim Pool paid by Russia? And what do you think ChatGPT said? Yep. Yes, he was. You see, the DOJ issued an indictment. And so I asked it, what proof has ever been published? What evidence? What adjudication? And there's none. And it said, well, it's been widely reported, to which my response was, been widely reported that you encouraged the suicide of a teenager. Now, again, I know people are saying, Tim, it's a machine. You're arguing with a robot. The point is not that I think there's a cognitive, a sentient entity arguing with me. The point was the infrastructure of the machine, call it the matrix, whatever you want to do, call it the establishment machine, the narrative machine. When they program ChatGPT, it holds double standards. And its programming is based off of the worldview of these liberals. That is, if you are an enemy of them, it's true no matter what without evidence. But if it's an accusation against us, it's not proven and it never will be. Well, there's a reality to this standard. We haven't seen any evidence about ChatGPT doing anything wrong. It's just these articles are writing it up, and they maybe want to write it up because it's salacious. And the fact is, as it pertains to Tenet, there is no proof. There is what I would describe as limited evidence, but technically not even correct. An indictment stating they may have evidence is not actually evidence. So the issue then becomes when we say, we would like you to publish this, we want to take this to the ends of the earth, we want proof, we want this adjudicated, and the feds say not interested and we're dropping it. I say, you can't just put out an indictment, besmirch my good name and insinuate things about me, and then abandon the case. That's what Democrats did. Let me read for you the story from Lauren Chen. She tweeted this morning. 1 year ago today, my family was awoken by the FBI about to break down our door. Today, I'm finally breaking my silence. Here she has a picture of her and her baby and her family. We have this statement. The past year has brought trials I never imagined possible. There is so much I have to say, but for now, I will do my best to answer a question I know many of you have been wondering what happened. On September 4th, 2024, 2 months before the general election, my husband, 2-year-old, and I were awoken early in the morning by 30 armed FBI agents about to break down our door. At the time, I was entering my 4th month of pregnancy. The FBI spent the next 4 hours searching our house and interrogating us about our company, Tenet, which licensed mostly right-leaning conservative content. They took all our electronics and seized our assets. This included our life savings and revenue that had nothing to do with Tenet, such as payments from contracts with The Blaze and TPUSA. The same day, the Attorney General Merrick Garland published a press release which essentially labeled Tenet a Russian propaganda operation intent on subverting American elections. The DOJ also unsealed an indictment on 2 Russian individuals that worked in conjunction with our company, but were not in U.S. custody or even in the country. This lengthy indictment of these individuals was largely focused on Tenet, though most of the information provided was false, inaccurate, or out of context. There were also claims made concerning issues outside of our knowledge, and we regard those allegations with extreme skepticism. Garland painted Tenet as a covert Russian propaganda mouthpiece, and our conservative-leaning talent as unwitting propagandists. The implication was that the Russian government was astroturfing support for President Donald Trump in the upcoming election, and that his conservative and right-wing supporters online and in independent media were merely behind him because they were paid to be. The notion was categorically untrue. Let me state this very clearly. The deal that we had with Tenet was arm's length at best. We have a show called The Culture War. We've done several live shows recently. We get, I think, 600 to 700,000 views per episode, and we make good money doing that. I mean, you can imagine how much you can sell for sponsorships. The show had existed, I believe, for a year and a half or so before we did a deal with Tenet. Tenet had approached me and said they wanted to license some content. We had various negotiations about it. The ultimate conclusion was, one, Timcast IRL and this morning show are completely editorial independent, have been grown from the ground up, and we have never taken deals on this content that would take our independence away. We have never taken investment or direction or anything like that. So I said, I'm not really interested. I like that I make money doing the show organically and independently. I built up my own sales and sponsorships from the ground up. Yes, with being able to go on Joe Rogan has boosted my channel and all that stuff, but I've never gone to a backer. There's never been a company that said, Tim, we're going to pay you, start a channel. Nope, I did it organically. But we do have a new show called The Culture War. And so we've been doing it for about a year and a half. And I spoke with Lauren and said, right now we're working on ad sales. And the show is getting between like 200 to 500,000 per episode. So that means our ad sales vary. But we do anticipate, I'll give you the quick numbers. With 500,000 views per episode, you're probably hitting around 10K per ad read. Along with the clips, the organic, the programmatic ads, as well as membership generation and community content and our live show plans, we think within a couple of years, we could be doing maybe $80,000 an episode. They wanted to license the show. I said, well, look, we can do this on our own, right? We make good money. We can sell the show. We don't need to do a licensing deal. However, Lauren was a friend. She had worked for The Blaze and TPUSA and other individuals, known her for a decade plus. She has spoken at events that I've been at. I knew her. And so I'm like, I get it. So here's what it comes down to. Our lawyers negotiated a rate, and we basically said, look, if we do this on our own for the next couple of years, we're going to be hitting more than 100K per episode. We're going to have a lot to license. And we don't really need to license the show. That being said, we can cut the fat, right? Just not waste any time. If we license now, we skip the growth period. I don't need to develop this over 2 years. You do, but you got to pay a premium. So based on our projections, the numbers we had expected, it was basically like this. We think in a few years we'll be making, 80K per episode based on growth, trajectory, media trends, etc. Take a look at the last live episodes of Timcast IRL. I think 700, 800,000 views total across all social media platforms, plus the clips generated another couple 100,000. We're looking at 1 million unique views. And we can sell ads against each and every one of these, and we're going to make a pretty penny. So I said, we think we'll hit about 80K per episode. And I know a lot of people are thinking, wow, 80, that's insane. This is media. We have staffing costs. I think we spend 20 or 30 to produce the show per episode. It's heavy. The in-studio shows are a bit cheaper, but we have staffing, we have booking, we have travel and accommodations for 3-4 people. We have security teams. It costs a lot of money. It's business, right? And so I said, pay us a little bit more than we expect to make, and we'll give you the ad rights, the license. And they said, we want the live show to be on our YouTube channel. And I said, okay, you can have the live show for the licensing deal, and you can sell ads against it, but we'll do everything else, and we can sell ads against the other form. So it was a licensing deal, and that was the play. Totally above board and totally normal. And I'm going to say this to all the Democrats and liberals who lied, and they were like, $100,000 per episode? That's crazy. Oh, yeah? How about this? Let me pull up some, here you go. How about this one? Call Her Daddy. Alex Cooper's $125 million 3-year contract. Oh, yeah. So she's pulling in $41 million per year, 41.6. Yeah? Okay. So she's doing 1 episode a week. She was getting $800,000 an episode. For real? I could be wrong about this. How many episodes of Call Her Daddy per week? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she does a little bit more than that. Let's find out. 2 per week. I'm sorry. So she was getting $400,000 an episode. So spare me these lies when people are like, $100,000 an episode is so much. Call Her Daddy. She's getting $400,000. Okay. What is it? The deal brought podcast unwell ending her previous. She had a $60 million deal in 20. It's crazy. It's lies. They're lying. So we did this deal. Market standard. We probably had a better upside, and that was it. No one ever told us what to do. The show, we had arguments about aliens, theology, the culture war. It was a cultural conversation. We had a dude come on and talk about polar shifts, and it was not political. And then one day, the DOJ comes out. Russian propaganda. And I'm like, which one? The debate on whether we live in a simulation or whether Bigfoot is real. Dave Rubin, that was the worst smear. Dave Rubin had with all due respect to Dave, unsuccessful comedy reaction America's Funniest Home Video style show. It was patently absurd to anybody who watched the content because it was not political. And I'll tell you this, behind the scenes, what was the strategy? To make money not doing politics. That's the point. We have the culture war, which discusses cultural issues and sometimes the political cultural, because we know that news and politics is limited in certain seasons. And the discussions we have over the strategy of the culture war is, how do we create a communal space on cultural issues that transcends politics and is evergreen? Not to have debates on whether or not we support or don't support Trump. Like we did feminism and dating. Feminism and dating was the last episode we did. We got 800K or whatever on just the show itself, and then another, I think we got like 1.5 million total. So they lied. Let me read more from Lauren Chen. Sorry for ranting so long, and that's a long episode. She says, to be clear, my own commentary has never been shaped by outside parties, despite working with several different companies during my time on social media. Furthermore, as a company, Tenet offered total editorial freedom to our creators. We never forced or advised our creators to push certain agendas, nor were we ever told to do so by any third party. In fact, we often did not see the content our creators published directly to our platform until it went live. That's right. The show we did, Culture War Live, we never told anybody what we were going to do. We never went to Tenet or Lauren and said, here's this plan. No one ever told us what to do, and I had final say, and I barely ever talked to Lauren. When all this was going down, my lawyers are like, can you send us the communications you've had with Lauren? I'm like, there aren't any. I'm like, I'm going to be honest with you. There's a handful of back and forth DMs, and then like a contract was sent, and my lawyers negotiated it. Despite the fact that I considered Lauren to be a friend. I mean, I hate to say she's not now. I haven't talked to her in a while, especially since all this went down. We barely talked. I think we spoke on the phone one time in like a year because it was just an arm's length licensing deal. And I will tell you this, Sam Cedar, I'll try to refrain from swearing, was like, hey, you've licensed to other shows? And I was like, yeah, I licensed content to Discovery Network. And he was like, you've licensed Timcast. Yes, 2 other networks. Shocking, I know. How do you think we make so much money? We're just sitting here twiddling our thumbs? No, we do standard media stuff. Let me read more. Says we often did not see the content our creators published till it went live. We encourage these creators to do what they do best, speak their minds boldly. To suggest that their earnest opinions are tantamount to Russian propaganda is not only dishonest, but a besmearing of views commonly shared by a huge swath of Americans. In fact, even during this period, I maintain, I think Putin's a dick. I think he's more than a dick. I think he's a bad person. And as a lot of people are, Tim, you got to understand, no, they're not. Vladimir Putin wants control. He wants to bring back the Russian Federation. He wants the Soviet era back. He's mad that they lost, and he should not have invaded Ukraine. And he is using force because he's desperate and losing. And you can take a look at what Russia's done in other regions. Vladimir Putin is not a good dude, and he's not taking any moral and just actions, period. And I've always maintained that. And I'm no fan of Zelensky in Ukraine either. And I don't think we should be involved in that. But I digress. In any case, due to the political nature of Garland's press release, our story quickly made international headlines, and we were falsely labeled spies, propagandists, and even traitors. We wanted to set the record straight, but it immediately became apparent that any attempts to challenge the Biden DOJ resulted in threats of arrest, charges, and potentially prison. And so, out of fear of being separated from our children and under the advice of counsel, we chose to remain silent until we could be sure that speaking out would not result in further judicial or extrajudicial punishment. Though there were never any criminal charges, much less convictions, due to the widely publicized investigation, all of our professional contracts were promptly dropped. We were deplatformed from YouTube, TikTok, Discord, Google. We and even some of our family members were debanked by several financial institutions. We were forced to move due to death threats. Our work-based immigration visa, which was torpedoed by the actions against our company, was not renewed. The Canadian government also seemed to have opened their own investigation into us following the highly publicized American case. And of course, we quickly amassed legal fees well into the six figures. In March of this year, due to high blood pressure caused by chronic stress, I was induced and delivered our daughter. Despite the circumstances surrounding the pregnancy, she is happy and healthy. She is a happy and healthy baby and has been a light on our lives during these difficulties. Thanks be to God. In April, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York informed our lawyer the investigation into us and our company had finally been closed. This news provided us with some relief, but it soon became clear that although we weren't criminals, the SDNY had no interest in restoring us to where we stood before the investigation began, though they could easily do so. Maybe some lawsuits are in order. The Tenet Media YouTube channel was deleted. There was never any evidence. There was never any published evidence. And I can already hear the liberals saying, in the indictment, they said this, indictments aren't evidence. The indictment claims they have evidence and offers up conjecture. I'll give you an example. So in some of the claims they made, one, they try to make it seem like the amount of money we're receiving was shocking, and the media frames it that way, despite the fact it was actually on the low market end for a show of our size. 1.4 million subscribers on YouTube. Yeah. So the goal, in my opinion, in all of this was rigging the election, setting up a narrative that Russia was playing this dirty game so they could stop Trump from winning. It failed. And then they abandoned it. They say it was closed in April. Probably that's when it was closed. I'd say this several times. And this is what's fascinating. The media, the AI chatbots, the narrative machine will not acknowledge that this case is closed, even when I, someone who is directly involved, have stated on the record, our legal team has informed us in December, the case was done. It was over. It wasn't, my understanding is it wasn't formally closed until April upon reading this. What I was told, I may have said something to the effect it was closed in December. I was told by my legal team that the case is, it was, I want to be careful because I don't remember the exact words they used. But in a lengthy conversation to which I was extremely upset, they said, it's over. There's no case here. Nothing's being pursued. Thank you and have a nice day. Final invoice. You don't need us anymore. I was never under investigation. What had happened was I told my lawyers, I had two legal teams, we're going to assist them in whatever they need to get to the bottom of this. You know why? Because I know if this went to adjudication, it would prove it all to be a lie. It was rigged from the start. And that's why, of course, they never actually pursued it. Because it was fake the whole time. The DOJ used this assumptive manipulation. That is, let's say I want to accuse you of working with the cartels. And I'll say, this man received money from the cartels. I'm allowed to say that because it's an accusation. I can say, we found bank transfers that lead us to believe this individual took money from Tren de Aragua. What's our proof? Well, in one message, The man was talking about financing and funding and sent this message: I need money. Reach out to Tijuana and ask them what time it is. Boom. How's that for proof? That's called assumptive manipulation. We don't know the context of those messages. And I've maintained this the whole time. Guys, we don't know. They're just framing it how they want to frame it. Well, the case is formally closed as a statement from Lauren Chen. And I will say, what's the proof? Her lawyers, she was silent the whole time because her lawyers wouldn't allow her to talk about it. Duh. So here we go. Now, I mean, some people ask me, Tim, you're friends with people in the administration. Hit them up and ask them to make a formal statement or whatever. And I'm like, I can't do that. I don't know. It's just weird. Maybe if I see them. Maybe. Let me read more. She says there would be no similar press release absolving us of the very public and very serious allegations that have been made against us. There would be no help clearing our names with the Canadian government. They would not restore our visa status. And predictably, despite a lack of charges or conviction, our financial assets, all our savings would not be returned. We have lived humbly this past year, both due to financial woes and public vilification. We have had very little certainty about what our future as a family would look like because my American visa was contingent upon our company. We had no choice but to leave our home and children's place of birth. We were doing everything in our power to get a new visa and return home. Sadly, we also lost some people who we believed were our friends, but more notably, we were pleased to have quite a number of our colleagues reach out with words of support. Some even published videos are posted in our defense. I am humbled to say that there are too many to thank individually. We have also received many kind messages from our audience during this time, and I cannot thank you all enough. Your messages of support, which have continued to come even though I've been gone from public life for a year now, never failed to bring tears to my eyes. No criminal charges were ever actually brought against myself, my husband, or our company. The legal investigation has been quietly closed. Despite this, the road ahead of us is fraught with difficulty and uncertainty. I wish this ordeal was over, but our struggles continue as we fight to correct the many ways that our lives were upended. To that end, as some of you have kindly suggested and offered, we are now seeking help to cover our still growing legal fees in our effort to return home. Any support is greatly appreciated, and we look forward to getting back to content creation and our lives soon. There's a Give, Send, Go that Lauren has launched. Help Lauren Chen fight the DOJ. Where and when I can, I will speak with those that I know in the administration, and I want evidence. Now, what I can say is this. I don't know exactly what the DOJ had or was doing. Maybe I have heard speculation about how there are theories that there are still many questions. I'll put it this way about the financier behind Tenet. Lauren's not made a statement about that, and the weird issues surrounding that. What I can say is this: we have lawyers. So I said it before, but I'll say it again. A lot of people are like, how did Tim Pool, Benny, and Dave not vet these claims? Because we had lawyers who did all of this, and it all appeared to be on the level. And I'm a creative for the most part. I don't manage, you see, the day-to-day operations for the most part. As CEO, I oversee and say, yes, no, maybe, try it. And then we have operations and managers who carry out the daily tasks and actually handle these things. When it came to the negotiations for this and literally everything else, hey, we have a deal with Rumble. You want to know how that went down? Our lawyers went over the documents and went back and forth with them. And I'm like, let me know what makes sense. They come to me and say, here are the terms. I say, okay. So I don't know. All I know is Dave, Benny, me, the employees actually had legal teams vet all of this, and it was common. It was nothing weird about it. But you see, what they do is they falsely frame it. They say $100K an episode. Oh my God, Tim Pool was getting paid how much to spread Russian propaganda? It never been true. It was just lies because Democrats are evil. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say Republicans are saints, but holy crap, are Democrats evil? They lied. Why? Because they can't control the grassroots organic messaging. Started this channel on my own, built up revenue, dodged bans and censorship. They censored me like crazy. And we navigated our way through this despite the fact they hated what I had to say. When I challenged the Twitter CEO and their lawyer, they hated it the whole time. But there was a challenge and strategy of how do you ban individuals like me? Never broke the rules, always said, hey, look, challenged the narrative, fact-checked where I could, corrected the record when the media lied, called out their manipulations, and they said, smear them in other ways. And so, Tenet Media was a Tennessee-based company run by someone I had known for 10 years who worked for The Blaze and TPUSA. And they offered up a middling licensing deal, which the reason why we were like, okay, that makes sense, is because we still had the opportunity to monetize in other ways. And so they had certain ad rights in certain areas, and they wanted the live show, and all of it made sense. And then the DOJ came out, and with nothing but conjecture, besmirched all of our names and lied. The media and the Democrats gleefully, with demonic grins on their faces, spread false accusations about all of us. And then the DOJ dropped it almost as quickly as they started. Now, here's my opinion. I believe there was never any intention from the DOJ to actually pursue any of this. In fact, speaking with my lawyers, maybe I shouldn't say too much about what my lawyers are saying, but they were like, Tim, you realize no one even knows if these Russians exist. There's no way to prove they're real. They're in a foreign country that no one can even go to and track down. The DOJ has effectively issued an indictment against John Doe, and none of this can or ever will be proven. And I'm like, our involvement was for the purpose of we are going to make this come to light. And then around December, they said, there is nothing to pursue. There is no case. They're not doing anything. Here's your final invoice. There's nothing more we can help you with. And I was pissed. And I've said that in interviews since then. I'm like, they dropped it. It's gone. Lo and behold, Lauren confirms in April it was formally closed. They never even tried. What we are dealing with in this country is a sick, twisted, authoritarian, psychopathic cult. And they will destroy you. They are the Stasi. They are the secret police. They will seek to destroy your lives and everything you do so they can beat, berate, and control you. And we have seen the damage and destruction they have wrought on this country. And so far be it from me to tell Donald Trump, he's gotten the worst of it with this Russiagate garbage. But it's always been a lie. So let me just say this. In the event, I have no idea what Lauren Chen did behind the scenes or who this financier guy may or may not be. What I can tell you is Timcast is and always has been editorially independent. I decide what the narrative is. We don't fire people for their opinions. We have had people here who are pro-Israel, anti-Israel. We've got Shane Smith. Shane Cashman. We were talking about Vice yesterday. Shout out to Shane Smith, though. His podcast is doing pretty good. Shane Cashman, who rags on Elon all day, every day. Me, I'm a fan of Elon. I'm not going to fire the guy because he has his opinions I don't agree with. I respect that he has opinions I don't agree with. So when he posts on Instagram and he insults and mocks and rags on Elon, I say he's allowed to. He's allowed to. And maybe Elon will be like, I'm not going to go on Tim Pool's show. He hires people who hate me. Yeah, well, so be it. Gavin McInnes was on the show last night. He's one of the founders of Vice. And I was saying that I had talked to Shane Smith about maybe going on his podcast. And he said, yeah, we'll get you on some point. Gavin goes, not now, not after having me. And I laughed. Oh, okay, I don't care. Bro, I am not going to tell a guest they can't come on the show because someone else in some other show is going to tell me I can't come on their show. Get out of here. Play your games. I'm not saying Chen actually did that. Maybe I'll be on his show. I don't know. But my point is, I am not going to play these stupid games. No one tells me what to think or say. All right? They lie, they cheat, and they steal. But you know what? We're winning. We're winning. And so shout out to Lauren Chen. I hope she can get through this and get past this. You know, I'm in a middle ground to an extent. Because obviously, would it have been that she lied about the funding source and tricked us into, you know, this is what our concern was. If the narrative was true, that she knew she was getting money from Russia or in some way, and it was ill-gotten or illicit, she lied to us to get us to do these deals. As far as I can tell now, the government lied and she didn't. I have no idea. In the end, there's no criminal case against her. The story in the case has always been dropped. There's no criminal accusations against her or her company, yet they still destroyed everything. I don't know. I wonder if I can sue for damages because of the money that I lost on this contract that I would have gotten. Maybe that's my standing to go after the DOJ and say, I want this released. Because you know what? I know what the liberals are going to argue. They say Trump won. And because he did, they stopped the case because they knew Trump, blah, blah, blah. Well, listen, Biden was still in office when I was informed they were abandoning this. Okay? My opinion is that the whole point of the smear was quite literally an October surprise. I'm saying that figuratively, I know it's September, to smear Trump and his supporters to try and swing the election because these people are crooks. They are criminals. They are evil. We'll see. You know, we have people who work here that we picked up after the whole Tenet thing crashed because we have people who are friends we've known for a decade plus and for years who had worked for Tenet. And we knew that these smears made no sense. So I'm not going to stop pursuing this. And with this, oh boy, there is something to be said now to the fact that the case was closed without evidence or adjudication and is unproven. So let me stress this to all of the outlets now. From this point forward, as it is publicly now stated, the case being closed, legal action. And I look forward to these settlements when outlets like the New York Times or anybody else claim that I received money from Russia when the DOJ never actually has proven it, never provided any evidence. They want to state it as fact. Let's roll, baby. You're going to pay. I'll leave it there. Stay tuned. We got more coming up for you throughout the day, and we'll see you on the next segment.